for a singular answer. So we want the first number. The biggest mistake that people make sometimes is they just multiply the two numbers, but we should know that if the two numbers have something in common, you can't just multiply them to get there. You'll get a multiple, but you won't necessarily get the least common multiple. So if we use cake method, we could find our way to get out the stuff they have in common and then multiply what's left. So if we start with our first one here, which is 8 and 12. Look at the 8, and we can think, if I put the 8 and the 12 under the division symbol here, that'll allow me to figure out what they have in common before I get started. So let me see. They have a 2 in common, which would give me 4 and 6. Okay, but they might have more in common. They have another 2 in common, which gives me 2 and 3. Now I'm at the point where, yeah, I could multiply these two, but they have this section in common. So if I find my least common multiple, or my greatest common factor of 4, and I take 4 and I multiply it by everything that's left, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 3 is 24. I know that the least common multiple is 24. Now, if I had to do more than this, if I had to list 4, like we were doing before with listing, I could just use that pattern from there on and just keep adding 24s. If I look at 24 and 10, I know I can't just multiply them because that'll get me to 240, and that's too high. If I look at 24 and 10, and I see what they have in common, if I can just pull out the factors they have in common, I'll be able to get to my answer faster. So I see that these are divisible by 2 because that leaves me 12 and 5. And I see that 12 and 5, they don't have any factors. So if I take the greatest common factor of 2 that I now have here, and I multiply it by everything that's left, 2 times 12 times 5, 2 times 12 is 24, and 24 times 5 is 120. So I know that the least common multiple is 120. If I could pull out that 2, I'll find out that they'll be meeting up beforehand. If I were just to multiply 24 and 10, that gives me 240, which is a multiple, but it's not the least common multiple. And over here, if I look at 8 and 12, I could multiply them and get 96. It's a multiple, but it's not the least common multiple. Look at number 20 here at the end, 12 and 20, and see the first place that they meet up. If you can find the factors they have in common first and then multiply it by what's left, you'll be able to find your answer. So if you want to pause it here and try that one, I'll go over it in a minute. Okay, let's look at 12 and 20. Now they definitely have some stuff in common. 12 and 20. If I were to multiply them, I'd get 120. 240. Let me see if they meet up somewhere first. Well, I know that they have a 2 in common because they're even. 6 and 10. And I know that 6 and 10 have a 2 in common because that's 3 and 5. Now, 3 and 5 don't have anything else in common. So if I take my greatest common factor, which is 4, and I just multiply it by everything that's left, 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 5 is 60, which is their least common multiple. If I were to just multiply 12 and 20, I'd get 240, which is a multiple, but it's not the least common multiple.